and most importantly, to show that owner of the small business what they can do. And eventually, that youngster may very well be a franchisee herself. So, we need to think about this very, very carefully. President Obama comes out now with yet another mandate, executive order, and says he, by executive fiat, is going to raise the minimum wage from $7.25 to $10.10 an hour on all federal employee contractors, just with a wave of a wand. I mean, this president is not king. In Congress, if we want to raise the minimum wage, let him come to us with his pen and his phone and ask us if we want to raise the minimum wage. And I think the answer will be no, and he has to accept that answer. We are not doing nothing but killing jobs in this country by doing that. What is a small businessman or woman going to do? They're not going to fire the existing employees that they know are good workers, but they're just going to simply stop hiring. They're just simply going to stop hiring. And right now in the state of Georgia, we still have an unemployment rate above 7%. One of the highest in the country, still above 7%. It would be the stupidest idea I can think of other than continuing with Obamacare.
Thank you. Well, if we want to have a further chilling impact on job creation, as if Obamacare, the Obama tax, healthcare tax hasn't been enough, raising the minimum wage will certainly be an even more chilling effect on job creation. There's one side that believes that somehow raising the minimum wage will start to lift people out of poverty. Well, the only thing raising the minimum wage is going to do is diminish the number of jobs out there. What we really need to be focused on is reviving our economy and getting job growth going again so that there's access to good quality jobs out there. And to do that, that's why we need to overhaul the tax code. That's why we need to reduce the owner's regulatory climate so that you can get back to doing what you do best, which is innovating and expanding and growing your businesses. And the other piece to this of really giving people opportunities to move up is revamping the workforce training programs and moving those programs out of the hands of the federal government into the states so that they can be modeled to fit the businesses that are actually in our states. Again, the surest way to chill job creation is to move that minimum wage up. It's not going to help anyone move up out of poverty. The way to do that is to get the economy and robust job creation going again through tax reform, tax overhaul, and regulatory reduction.
Increasing the minimum wage is one more Washington job-killing regulation, one more mandate on small businesses. I worked minimum wage, probably many of you did. Worked at the IHOP when I was 16 years old, walked in the door, said, you know how to work a buffer machine? No. You know how to work an industrial dishwasher? No. Do you know how to clean an Ansel system and a deep fat fryer? No. You know how to work a cash register? No. I wasn't worth the $1.60 an hour they had to pay me, but I was fortunate that the business was able to adjust and I was able to get that opportunity. And because I got to work, I did get a promotion. I became a busboy and then the head busboy and eventually got to be a cook. And it was a big deal. I got up to $2 an hour. And that is the way it works for you. It's for small business. It's an opportunity wage. If we raise that opportunity wage too high, you quit hiring because you can't make the adjustment that you need. I have a friend who's a Burger King franchise owner. I asked him, so tell me what happens to somebody these days. You hire them at minimum wage. Just give me a real example. He took a person, a real name, and said within 2 years, he was making $45,000 a year, and he was a manager. And the reason, he said, is because I don't want them making minimum wage. I want them to be upwardly mobile, just as I'm sure you do. You want people to climb that ladder, but they got to get their foot on the first step, just as I did when I was 16 years old. And we want to have lots of opportunities. The bottom of that ladder needs to be big so people can get on it and climb up it. As part of my American Renewal Agenda, have 4 things that are directed towards job creation: pushing back on regulation, Workfare over welfare, tax simplification, and energy independence. One of the best things we could do for the American worker today, if we want to put more money in his or her pocket, is to build the Keystone Pipeline and bring down the cost of gasoline at the gas pump. Can you imagine what would happen if gas went back to $2.50 an hour? And I don't need to remind you, but when President Obama was sworn in January 2009, gas was $1.87 a gallon. We need energy independence as a way to turn around the economy and give more people money in their pocket and more opportunity. Thank you.
You know, this question about minimum wage is where the two parties actually go at odds. And the Democrats call us the hard-hearted party when we talk about things like this, but they don't understand how the free enterprise system works. If you increase the minimum wage, we've proven it time and time again, you destroy jobs. It's just an economic reality. The two tenets that are the backbone of the Republican Party are economic opportunity and fiscal responsibility. If you got this economy going, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about minimum wage. Why are we talking about minimum wage? Because 1 out of 5 people in America today are either unemployed or underemployed. Men 35 to 55 are unemployed or stop looking for work at 18%. First time in history that number's ever been that high. The way to solve this problem is not to arbitrarily do it the backwards way. This is backwards thinking by politicians who have no experience in the free enterprise system. And I have one question for you. It'll stand. Why? Because our Congress is going to let it stand. It's time to stop that. If you get this economy growing, and I don't have a 5-point plan or a 4-point plan or anything else. I'm not that presumptuous. But I will tell you this. There are 5 basic principles to grow this economy. We've proven it over and over again. We just said it. We proved it in the state of Georgia in the last 10 years. We proved it in the U.S. in the 1980s. First of all, we have to have tax reform. We talk about how it disincents work, it disincents investments. We talk about the $6 trillion sitting off to the side. Regulatory reform. The EPA is absolutely creating more uncertainty and keeps money off the investment track than it should be. The third thing, we keep hearing about energy policy. We need to be energy. We are already energy independent. We should be. With the natural gas boom that God's given us, there's no reason in the world why we aren't the largest exporter of natural gas in the world. We're the largest producers today. But because of this administration, the arcane rules behind that, it's not flowing down to business. We still have high... Look at what propane... Anybody in here use propane? I do. I don't have to tell you what that's done in the last year. Infrastructure. We're spending 1/3 of what we need to spend in our infrastructure in the United States just to maintain that infrastructure. I'm talking about bridges, streets, roads, ports. We've been working on deepening that port. I was on the Port Authority, and I know what we've done, what we haven't done there. It's unconscionable that we're still fooling around trying to dig that port. We've been digging in that river since Oglethorpe. And we're now still trying, after 17 years, we still haven't gotten deep. And those big ships are already coming in. They're coming in at 60% load. The last thing I'll talk to you about is something we haven't talked about today. But if you talk to Georgians right now, the 2 issues on their mind. 1, debt and the economy. 60% of you and I say that that's the number 1 issue. Number 2 issue, education. And let me tell you something. You want to deal with the minimum wage? Go deal with this. 1 out of 3 kids right now will not get out of high school. They will not graduate from high school in the United States of America, the richest country in the history of the world. Not only that, our 14-year-olds are 25th and 26th in math and science. Go start solving the education problem. Get this economy going. We won't be sitting here talking about minimum wage. Thank you.
Small business owners recognize and understand that the key to their success is a productive, loyal workforce. In order to do that, we need to pay our workers fairly. We need to provide them with benefits. We need to ensure their economic stability. I do that in my practice. The staff that I have, I pay 3 times the minimum wage. I offer pension benefits and I offer a bonus because she's worth it. She keeps the practice going. When I'm not right, she helps get me right. And I think we all benefit, and small business owners benefit when they invest in their workers. I also believe, and this is something that I saw on the NFIB website, a key concern of NFIB members is high inventories. Well, how do we get rid of that? How do we help you get rid of that? Well, we have to increase demand. Well, how do we increase demand? Well, the 2 gentlemen to my right said in different responses, we've got to put money in the pockets of consumers. Well, this is what increasing the minimum wage will do. It will put money in the pockets of consumers to increase demand to purchase the products that are sitting on your inventories. I believe it's a win-win and I support it.
that other meeting. You know, I was almost thinking of a seventh inning stretch here. You're facing these attractive and well-prepared candidates, and I'm looking out at the sun shining on the beautiful seats of our latest disposable stadium.
Really?
All right, the last question's kind of fun, but it will also serve as a closing statement. So the question is designed that candidates can have some fun with it, but also kind of tell us their last thoughts before we adjourn into the sunshine. Thank you, Lord. And so, Dr. Rad, you go first. Here's the question. So you've been elected to the Senate. Michelle Nunn is crushed, and you're there. And you're getting settled in, and when you arrive, and in the lunchroom, which senator would you choose to sit next to and make the cow, since you're new?
Yeah, so this is a good one.
Well, that's a great question. Kyle, thanks. I would probably choose Senator Chris Coons from the Democrat senator from Delaware, and I choose him because he is a college classmate. And so we could give one another that secret fraternity handshake that we had back in the day, and I think that would be a great thrill. But let me say this: we've talked about some very serious issues that are close to your heart, and we talked about a number of solutions. But I'll tell you, none of them matter because we're not going to be able to solve those problems because of the big question, the elephant in the room, and that's the dysfunction in Washington. Unless we address that, we're not going to be able to address any of these other issues that we've talked about today. And the dysfunction in Washington is that there's not a level playing field. Small businesses are at disadvantage. Big businesses have all the breaks, they've got all the access. And small business need a strong advocate. They need an advocate who's going to put Main Street ahead of Wall Street. Now, I've worked in my practice, I take all comers. Whether you're a Tea Partier, whether you're conservative, whether you're liberal, progressive, libertarian, you name it. I take them all. And you know, when we get together, when we focus on the problem, we come up with common sense solutions to the most challenging problems that men and women and their families face today. So I believe it can be done, and I will be your advocate to put Main Street interests ahead of Wall Street interests. And as I've been campaigning around the state, I've been saying to folks, you know, Georgia needs a new senator, but Washington really needs a psychiatrist. So I believe I'm uniquely qualified in that respect. I want to ask for your support and your vote in May in the general election. Thank you very much. What are your rates? Bring all the candidates on the panel.
What about staff?
Look, democracy is great. I've lived outside the United States. I've lived in communist China. I've lived in Europe, a couple places. This is a great process. I'm new to it, but it's a great process. It doesn't always put the right people in office, however. 90% of the time, we put an incumbent politician back in office, even though the approval rating in Congress today is under 10%. That's part of why I got in this race, guys, is to give us an alternative on the Republican side. The contrast is really very stark. You know, when you look at the politicians in this race, they're all great people. They've been in office, they've been in politics anywhere from 10 to 20 plus years. If they're going to make a difference on these issues we're talking about, wouldn't they have already done it? I mean, I just seem to think in business, you just don't get that kind of tenure. You have a different sense of urgency, a different heartbeat, a different pace to get something done. Who would I sit next to? I'm not sure anybody would sit next to me if I get elected. Because I'm not happy with it. Anybody. On both sides. We're all guilty. I mean, we almost doubled the debt during the Bush years. We certainly are on track to more than double it right now during the Obama years. I don't see any innocent parties. Listen, I have a business career. I've lived outside the United States. I understand how to compete in the global free market system, generate economic growth, and create quality jobs. Not the reverse. That's what the administration is trying to do. Create the jobs, that'll drive economic growth. It doesn't work that way. These politicians don't understand it because they haven't spent the last 40 years running around in the free enterprise system, making mistakes, having successes, investing their own money, borrowing money, putting your own net worth at risk, hiring people that